backing down, 'cause the future is now. Not backing down, 'cause the future is now.
So I love the idea of profits through principle, and I love the idea that this is a business and that there is an attention to the bottom line and that we're doing these things because they're the right thing to do, but at the same time they're very good for business. Mm-hmm. How has this been sustained for so long?
So I really think it goes back to the earliest days of Levi Strauss. Mm-hmm. Like Levi Strauss himself, the founder of our company, right?
Granddaddy of the whole thing.
Yeah, the granddaddy of the whole thing, almost 170 years ago. This was something that was how he thought about business from the earliest days, right? So in some ways we talk about, this is in our DNA. It's in our DNA of what is the phrase? Doing well by doing good, right? That is who we are, from the earliest days of Levi Strauss, giving money to an orphanage through, the 20th century where you saw everything from desegregated plants in the South, which was, a decade or more before the Civil Rights Act, up through a real focus in the 80s and 90s on LGBTQ equality. We were the first company to offer same-sex partner benefits.
I remember.
All these things, right? It's just who we are. Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Thanks for having us, Tracy.
Absolutely.
This is Marissa Waldman from Leaderology.
Thank you.
And this is Tracy Panic, the other Tracy. There's two of us today, who is our historian.
Wonderful.
Yeah, welcome. We've got a very rich history at Levi Strauss, almost 170 years
Holy
old.
mackerel. This is like beyond exciting. Thank you.
And we get to preserve some of it here in our public museum. So there's a lot of fun things to see, and I'm hoping to share a few of those.
I have never met a corporate historian before.
We're pretty rare, but cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Cool.
The coolest of the cool.
Yeah. Tracy, I always say Tracy has the best job in the entire company.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's a fun job. Well, it all starts here with our founder, Levi Strauss, our founder and namesake. And here he is, a very young man. He was born in Bavaria, today's Germany. This is his house, and you can actually go and visit it if you go to Germany today.
Wow.
It's called Butenheim. There are 3 breweries and his house that you can tour.
It's incredible to me that this immigrant comes here to the United States and then moves quickly to San Francisco and is immediately giving back and is focused on this value that I call tikkun olam in Judaism. But where does this come from?
Well said. He was actually Jewish. His family was Jewish. He was the youngest son in a Jewish family, and a lot of that upbringing and values that he had carried over when he arrived in the United States. He wanted to give back as he had done in his Jewish tradition, and that's really what we still do today.
This is why you love your job.
I do love
There's
such great stories.
Great stories, rich history from the very beginning. So it's amazing to me. Levi's has this incredibly rich and long history of taking stands against racial injustice, gun violence prevention, etc. What should the business community be focusing on now? What's next?
So, unfortunately, there's so much we can focus on, right? All those things are still very much things we have to be working on. One area that we've really taken a stand on in these last couple of years that I'm very proud of, and yet, as I say, there's more work to do. There's more work to do across especially our industry of retail, is paid family leave, specifically here in the U.S. As I'm sure you know, we are pretty much the only developed country that does not have paid leave to take care of one's family or even really oneself oftentimes, just to take time away to be able to take care if you're sick or if you've had a baby or whatever those things are. And it is shameful, actually. And when you see how many women have left the workforce during the pandemic specifically, and the reason is because they've disproportionately borne the burden of our lack of infrastructure. We talk about how women in the United States are the social safety net. We have to step in. And so in a time where schools were disrupted and people were sick, what happened? Is it any surprise that women have left the workforce in droves and set us back our participation literally 30 years? And by the way, back to profits through principles, it's not just because it's the right thing to do, it's much smarter from a business perspective. I would much rather pay someone to go take care of themselves and their family and have that employee come back.
So I'm smiling as you're saying this because during the pandemic, 3 of the women on my leadership team went out on maternity leave, and we bridged their salaries the whole time. They each took 4 months of paid maternity leave, and we were not required by law to do that. But And as people would say to me, that you're so kind, that's so nice of you. And I said, no, this is good business, right? This is top talent. These are women that I want to protect, that I want to retain. And they need to go have babies. If they don't have babies, who's having the babies in this world? And so for them to go on maternity leave and to exist on a 60% of their salary, it doesn't work that way. They can't call their mortgage company and say, I'm on maternity leave, I'm only going to pay you 60% of the mortgage this month. They have to continue with their expenses, and so they need to continue with their income. So I love, again, the concept that, yes, this is the right thing to do because we're humans and we employ humans, but it's good for business.
Absolutely.
This is a pair of blue jeans that belonged to a woman named Viola. And Viola, now take a look at this. They're very much like the blue jeans that we wear today, button fly, like our men's 501. This was introduced in the 1930s. It had a high waist, so it was a feminine fit, a little bit different than the 501. But what's great about this is we know something about this because the woman who wore them, she wrote her name on the inside. Her name was Viola Longacre, and at the time she was a student at Fresno State University. This is her senior graduation picture. Viola was pretty she was a far-sighted woman. She was going to college, Fresno State, getting a degree in English. She became an English teacher, but it was while she was at college that she bought these Levi's. She kept them in her closet all her life. And when she passed away, we bought these from her daughter.
That's such an amazing story. And if you think about it at the time, what women were wearing, this would have been fairly revolutionary, right? To be able to have
daring,
jeans.
very daring.
She was daring, and this is the kind of woman that that's wearing Levi's that represents the women that we talk about who are independent-minded, they're fashion-forward, they want to make their lives good, and they do it living in Levi's.
So the last couple of years have been a lot for a lot of people. And I know that you've shared with me that in the past, you personally have experienced some pretty significant burnout.
Yes, I mean, it's true. It was probably about 8 years ago now. I was hard charging in my career. I had, my son, I think, was 7 or 8. And, you know, I had always just been able to work through it. I had always just been able to work the hours I needed to work, juggle the family life, do everything, and be okay. And then sometime around this period, it just wasn't okay anymore. Like, it just became unbearable, actually. If you've ever really experienced burnout, it's not something I recommend, because it is over the line of overwork, overstress, exhaustion that is really, really, really hard to just get out of bed in the morning, you know, and it leads to anxiety. It can lead to depression. In my case, you know, it's just deeply, deeply painful. And I'm super grateful that I had enough peace of mind to know that I had to step away. I took a sabbatical. I didn't really have a choice, actually. I say this now as if it was some choice, and I also acknowledge that I had some resources and support from my family to be able to do that. Not everyone has that.
So what are you doing at Levi's to really help all the employees?
So we really a few months into the pandemic, I remember saying, once we kind of get through the initial, how do we keep people safe and can we open our stores and some of those initial things, not that there was ever really any lack of uncertainty, but we felt like we got our feet under us.
Right.
It became very clear that people were overwhelmed and burned out. There were no more people who were working remotely. There were no more boundaries between work and home life. Folks going to our stores had to navigate public transit and, deal with, being in public all the time when things still didn't always seem safe. Same with our distribution centers. So all of our employees were dealing with their own particular version of the pandemic stress. And I remember saying to a colleague, my new fear is not that someone dies from COVID, it's that someone dies by suicide. Right. Because of the isolation so many people felt or the overwhelm. And so we did actually something called, we put in a program called Seamless, where we looked at all aspects of kind of the employee life cycle.
I just laughed. That's
I know, that was intentional.
That's cute.
It's
I like
fabric,
it. Seamless,
it's,
yeah,
jeans.
good stuff. Good, yeah.
And we really tried to attack sort of all aspects of how we were touching employees, what support we were giving them, it's an acronym, how we were engaging with them, how we were adopting new behaviors. And then one thing we really leaned into was manager development around leading with empathy. So it was important to us that we really started to teach managers how to understand what was going on for every person on their team, because that was going to be very different by everyone's situation.
And then take action.
And then take action.
Yes.
The future is now.
It is such a privilege to work here.
And you know what? It's a privilege to visit. Thank you for having me, because being here in this company that is so progressive and that has attracted so many employees that are so progressive, as well as fans like Viola, who have really taken such ownership of the company, of the products, and made them their own. It's remarkable.
'Cause the future is now.